Happy Saturday afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Marketing Corner. My name is Shawn Campbell. I'm going to apologize first and foremost because we really need 2 hours today, David, with our host.
Absolutely.
You bring it. You bring like the A plus of the A plus of the A plus.
Hey, you let me know.
Oh, my God. Co-host David Bradley, thank you for being here again.
I'm proud to be here, and a pleasure and honor to be here. You know, guess who's back? Back again.
Special guest Bob Logan. How are you today, Bob?
I'm living the dream every day.
Oh, my God. I wake up at 4 o'clock every Saturday morning because I can't wait to get in here. I wish I would have trolled you this morning instead of during this week because I could not wait for today.
Oh, good.
I cannot wait. I know we've been talking a little bit. I've been kind of quiet, kind of reserved because I want to save as much as our discussion for our audience today.
Today's going to be epic. Yes,
it's gonna, yeah.
You never scared me here. You're setting a pretty high bar. This is going to be a huge fall.
Yeah.
It's going to be a huge disappointment.
We'll all fall together, my friend.
I have faith in you, Bob.
If and when, audience, if and when you have a question, 520-790-2040, 520-790-2040. Give us a call with your questions. Mr. Logan, the first thing I want to get into when I was doing my research on you and I are Air Force brats.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
I see that as a thread amongst your and how it's influenced your career.
No doubt.
My friends are tired of me, discussing how when I was this and I was that. I want you to what part of that experience has held over into your career?
The first part would be 7 schools in 12 years.
Yep.
So I was born in Montgomery, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody go, oh, really? You're from Alabama? Are you
I can tell from your accent.
Yeah.
I left after a week.
So I was in Montgomery, Alabama for 7 days.
Oh, wow.
We were in the middle we were in the middle of a cross-country transfer, believe it or not.
Really?
From one place, Florida, to Sacramento, to McClellan Air Force Base. And my mom was pregnant. We had to stop in Montgomery, have me, and then continue driving across the country. So, to your point, Shawn, is when you go to different schools every 2 years, it is a challenge because you have to make all brand new friends.
Yeah.
And start from scratch every couple of years. So you learn that change is part of my life, and change has been a continuing theme throughout my entire career.
Yeah.
No complacency.
Yeah. No.
One thing, and I'm going to, sorry, I'm plugging my book a little bit, right? But one thing that I always say in my book is you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And that's what being an Air Force brat, I love going in the summer that I've never been to before and just walking into a place and just kind of starting a conversation with somebody who's 100% not like me.
Right.
There's nothing better than that to me. And you and I, and you too, Dave, we have that ability to do so.
Right.
And you cannot put a quantitative amount on how much that has led to
not at all. It's like
some of the success and you as well, Bob.
Yeah.
Adaptive to your surroundings, right?
Yeah. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to South Point here locally.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. My brother, on the other hand, he went to 3 high schools.
Wow.
He went to a high school in Maine and a high school in Camarillo, California when we were at Oxnard Air Force Base.
Wow.
And his final 2 years were at South Point.
Yeah.
So he went to 3 schools. I was fortunate. My dad retired here in 68. And I had my full high school career.
Any time overseas?
No, only in football, but not in Air Force.
Yeah, I spent most of my life before 18 overseas.
Oh, really?
I graduated in West Germany.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And one thing, another layer upon that, if you're a military family, they come from all backgrounds, right? So I grew up around everybody. I've had the best food in the world. You know what I mean? It's just like being a part of so many different cultures. You know what I mean? Has really kind of helped me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
The flip side, the bad side about being in the Air Force background, Air Force brat, is I can't remember any of my friends from prior to like 6th grade.
Yeah.
So everything up to 6th grade are people that I played Little League with, but I don't have any recollection of friends other than people I used to play with.
Yeah, I think there's 1 or 2 people here in Tucson that I went to high school with, and that's it. I never run into them or whatever. So it's just, that is the flip side, right? My cousins, my family, I really don't know my extended family very well at all, right? So that is the trade-off, unfortunately. So you and I are also Eller graduates.
Absolutely. Good for you.
Yeah. So I told you I did a little bit of controlling on you. That was kind of creepy, huh?
That was a life-changing thing for me because I came from teaching history at South Point. I was a world history and American studies teacher.
Wow.
And I was coaching at the University of Arizona, graduate assistant, so I had to get a graduate degree. And all of the other GAs are getting degrees in PE or exercise sciences. And I said, I don't want that kind of degree. I want a degree where I can
do something with it.
So I go into the MBA program, and let me tell you, I didn't know a debit from a credit.
Yeah.
And to learn high-end business was, the first year was really, really challenging. But you know, what I learned about business school, the second year, it's all class projects. And I learned that, you know what, delegation is pretty darn important. Yeah. So we'd get a group, and I'd say, okay, you're doing the finance, you're doing the accounting, you're doing the marketing, and I'm going to do the presentation.
Yeah. Well, your coaching background, too, came into big play with that.
You know, know what your skills are. Yeah. Know what your skill set is.
Yeah. How did you fall into coaching?
I was on a pretty good football team at South Point. We were ranked 4th or 5th in the state. We lost. We didn't go to the playoffs, but I loved playing football. And my high school coach went to the Air Force Academy to be an offensive line coach. So I was recruited, went to the Air Force Academy. I quit in the first year, which is another story that we can talk about. But when I came back to start teaching, Ed Doherty is a name, if you follow high school football in this community. He was a legend. And I coached for his final couple of years, and he was just a master. Not only a master coach, but a master of organization, working with people, etc. And so that kind of led me into, this is a path I want to go to, at least initially. Didn't work out that way long term, but I spent a good amount of my career coaching.
Yeah, what was some of the biggest lessons that you learned, you know, as the coach? You learned a lot from Ed.
Right.
But being in the trenches with your players.
You know what? Here's the part that I see if I can do this phrase. Talent doesn't win. Grit and working hard defeats talent every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. Teamwork.
And you know, I coached some amazing players, you know, all state, all conference, all American players. But the kids that I remember more than anything are the ones that grinded. You know, didn't have the best athletic ability, but boy, they could get the job done because they just outworked everybody.
Yeah.
Having that heart.
Yeah. So as you know, we got a couple minutes to the break, but one of the things I want to touch upon in the next segment here is the relationship between sports and business.
Sure.
Right. You know, Dave and I talk all the time, and I was just saying how tired you are of me probably giving baseball analogies.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So
you know, I mean, I coached youth football for 13 years. You know, not to the level of college. You know, but it's that same thing. You know, shaping these kids. You know, at such a young age. You know, and going to a store, running into them, and they still call you coach. It's like, I just got the chills.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, what was the most rewarding? What was some of the biggest lessons you learned in coaching those 13 years?
Patience.
For guys like you and I, that's invaluable.
Yeah, it is. It is. But it really goes a long way when you can kind of shape these kids at such a young age.
Yeah.
You know, and see them where they are now, right? And they're all graduated high school now, and they're off doing their own thing. It's amazing.
Yeah. And they're all gentlemen, I'm sure.
Yeah, they're getting older, not me.
So we got less than a minute going into the break, and we are here with Bob Logan. Again, if you have any questions for any of us, you know, related to business, marketing, entrepreneurship, how sports relates to all the above, please give us a call, 520-790-2040. And is there anything that any surprises at the show that you're going to share with us, Bob?
I'm going to follow your lead.
I'm going to follow my lead. We got a few surprises in store for everybody.
All right.
So again, 520-790-2040. We are with Bob Logan and co-host David Bradley. And so we'll be back here in the next segment here in a couple minutes.
Stay tuned.
We're back with a Marketing Corner. My name is Shawn Campbell, co-host David Bradley, special guest Bob Logan today. Bob, there's so many different topics I want to get into. Let's talk about the relationship between sports and business.
Okay.
Right? How much has sports made either a positive or maybe a negative influence on what you do today?
It's pervasive in my life. And honestly, it's interesting. After I stopped coaching, and I'm now a motivational speaker and an author. I often would not talk about my sports background because I realized that a lot of people aren't into sports like I was.
Right.
And I just recently began to put it in my talks. I've got a photo of a Kansas City Chiefs huddle. All right. And I start off by saying, I normally don't talk about sports analogies, but when you look in the huddle, you've got a big fat guy, you've got a small little quick guy, you've got a real smart guy probably, and you look at the nature of the huddle, the diversity of that huddle is actually the diversity of your organization, with the exception of women, okay?
Yeah.
And every single one of those players in that huddle come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. They have different skill sets, and you've got to train those guys and women to work together as a team to move forward.
Yeah.
It's no different than trying to score a touchdown and take that ball and put it over the end zone than you taking your organization to whatever your goal and your strategy is to move forward.
Yeah.
So applying those techniques, I think, is really, really valuable.
Yeah. One of the biggest, there's so many things on your website, and, we'll provide that website pretty soon, but one of the biggest things that really hit me is that the client is not the most important thing, it's your employees.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I learned that a long time because years ago, the customer was number one.
Right.
Well, that may be true, but to integrate and to implement your business goals, you've got to have employees that are fully engaged and passionate about the mission. So I hate to say it, the customer is not number one. Your employee is number one.
Right.
And you got to make sure your employees are on the same page as you to create a great experience for your customer.
Yeah, and getting them on the same page, how important is it? And I preach this all the time to small business owners. And people not hate me, but they get into arguments with me because I don't go to local coffee shops as often because of just the lack of customer service. It's always inconsistent. You could tell that people just don't care. And I'm not upset with them. I'm upset with their leadership for not, in my opinion, they're probably not providing the vision of what the small business owner wants, their business to be perceived.
No, absolutely.
How important is it for that leader or that small business owner to share that vision with their employees?
Well, and it's got to be really difficult today because we're in a social media landscape right now. We don't do physical touch with the customer very much anymore. So when there is an opportunity to have a touch moment, a touch point with the customer, you've got to take it
spot on.
You can't. You've got to take advantage of it, and you got to create an experience for that customer that makes you memorable, that makes them want to come back to your organization.
Yeah. And creating that experience also buys you a little leeway in case the steak just wasn't perfect, in case the cheese wasn't, I mean? They're going to go back for the experience. Right? So what are some of the common, excuses that you hear from small business owners when, they're getting less than a 5-star review on their Google page?
Well, here's my point. You've got to own it, man.
Yeah.
You have to own your mistakes.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick story from when I was working at the University of Arizona. I came into the College of Science from athletics. 10 years in athletics as a coach, as an athletic director, as a fundraiser, and I took this job in the College of Science to run their development operation, a place I knew nothing
completely
about.
Out of your wheelhouse.
Way outside of my space, because I thought it might be an opportunity for me. If I succeeded here, that'd be a pretty good story in an interview for another better job down the road. Okay, so I'm going through all my files, all these donors that I have in my files, and I find this file of Lola White from Phoenix, okay? And she made a $25,000 gift many years ago to fund an endowment for a graduate fellowship, okay? And I'm looking at the paperwork and the documentation, and it's like, oh my God. The endowment was now worth like $300,000.
Wow.
and I'm trying to find, okay, well, where's the string of students that have been awarded the fellowship? It had never been awarded. So what happened, that $25,000 had remained invested for like 25 years, and it had grown to this massive amount, but I realized we had never delivered on producing a student that she funded. So here I am in my first couple of weeks going, well, this is going to be fun.
This is going to change.
But here's what I learned. I called Lola up. I said, Lola, my name is Bob Logan. I'm the new development guy at the College of Science. I've got some really good news. I've got some bad news, too. Mm-hmm. She goes, well, what's the good news? Well, your endowment's very substantial. You've got about $300,000 in this endowment. Mm-hmm. And the bad news is we've never awarded a graduate fellow.
Wow.
She goes, I've been waiting. I've been trying to get a hold of people all these years. Wow. Nobody's ever called me back. Nobody's ever talked to me.
Wow.
You're the first person that's responded.
There's another $25,000.
Yeah. She did. So she's a multi-million-dollar donor to the university. I may be off on the numbers a little bit, but here's the point. All she wanted to do is be heard.
Yeah.
She wasn't angry.
Yeah.
She just wanted to be heard. She wanted to be listened to.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we make excuses about our mistakes, but most people, if you own the mistake and tell them, I am terribly sorry, this is not going to happen again, they're going to give you a pass.
It goes a long way.
Yeah.
Saying
you're sorry.
Yeah. In my industry, Bob, in marketing, the number one reason why we would lose a client, it's not because of a perceived bad ROI on their investment with us. It's not, bad metrics or bad data or whatever. It's the customer or my clients thinking that that they don't mean anything to us.
Right.
And sometimes it just takes a call, just saying, hey, how you doing? How's your daughter doing? And this, I just want to let you know this, and we're adjusting. Retention is one of those things in any business where I think it's a very underappreciated metric.
Right.
It's a lot more expensive to find a new customer or client than it is just to keep your own clients.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm gonna touch on something you mentioned during the break. Mm-hmm. It's important that you make that call or go see them face to face, eyeball to eyeball.
Yeah, eyeball
because
to eyeball.
Too many young people now, they want to send a text or an email.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when you get an envelope in the mail that is handwritten, a note, guess what? You're going to open that thing up because you don't see those very often.
Yeah.
So if you're going to own up to a mistake, you need to respond in person or on a phone call, not in a text or an email.
Yeah, there's something, I think you and I, David, were talking about this the other day when we're kind of going over some AI stuff, right? We both agree that AI is necessary today to be kind of versed in it and know how to utilize it to become more efficient.
Oh, absolutely. Efficiency,
Yeah, but nothing beats the ability that you and I and Bob have of being face-to-face and having conversations.
Yep.
This show in itself, this is the first time you and I ever had a conversation, Bob.
Right.
How many people 20, 30 years younger than us could literally meet on and provide this value and information to everybody who's listening right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have no doubt we can do that.
The world's going to end because of you.
It's scary times.
What was your biggest win as a coach? Getting back to that kind of the relationship between sports and business. What was your biggest wins, both on the front of being a coach in sports and your biggest win as a leader in business? That's a good question.
Okay. I will give you a two-part answer.
Okay.
The biggest win, if you're looking at just wins, football wins. In 1986, we played Arizona State in the final game of the year. Mm-hmm. It's a great story, long story. I won't go into it now, but they were, I think, ranked 7th or 8th in the country. Mm-hmm. We were like 12th. They were already in the Rose Bowl, undefeated. And we upset them 34-17. This is a game where Chuck Cecil ran the 106-yard interception return.
I got to tell you a story during our break about that.
And I'll tell you what happened was we were not favored in the game. We were a severe underdog.
Yeah.
And we convinced our players that we can do this. Mm-hmm. And we did. Mm-hmm. And we dominated the game almost throughout the entire game. Mm-hmm. So that was victory number one. The second victory, coaching to business, was me going to Italy to coach. I was a head coach of the Bologna, what I call them, the Fighting Doves. The mascot were doves, believe it or not.
I believe it. Yeah, I spent some time
on our helmet. I tried to put fangs on the dove. But you know what happened there? I was coaching in an environment that I was in a different culture. I was in their land, and I was trying to impose my will of coaching at the Division I level at the University of Arizona on these Italians. Mm-hmm. And they were putting their heels in. I had them come to my flat and say, we're going to quit. You're pushing us too hard. And I'm like, Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Go ahead and quit.
Football,
I don't
come
care.
on.
Yeah.
Come on.
But guess what? I realized that I had to adjust to them, not them adjust to me.
Right.
And once I learned that message, that was very, very powerful, because I used that throughout my business career, that maybe I'm not right all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody else around the table has a good idea, and maybe we should listen to them, not just the guy at the head of the table.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you shared that story, Bob.
Yeah.
I remember we've known each other, I think going on 2 years now?
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like I've known you forever.
Yeah.
You know, you spoke at our agency retreat.
Right. Oh, wow. A couple of years ago.
We were Payson?
Payson.
Yeah, we were in Payson. And it was so powerful. It was so powerful. Like, you know, we needed a guest, right? Boom. I immediately thought of Bob. Thought you're amazing.
Oh,
you know?
well, come on.
Yeah, he's all right.
I love you, man.
Yeah, but the story, I mean, but you shared a lot of stuff, and a lot of motivational stuff. I mean, giving back. I don't know if we have some time to touch on that. You know, the little gift bag, the bag.
The blessing bags.
The blessing bags, yeah. Just amazing, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get a motivation after we come out of the break here in a few minutes. But would you say that your style of leadership and coaching is more like the servant?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I've watched many young coaches, and invariably the young coaches, and also in youth football, you see it a lot of youth football. The Vince Lombardi screaming and yelling, belittling the players, coming, you know, just losing their minds, and you know, players don't respond to that.
Right.
One time they will.
Yeah.
But after that, they're going to shut you down.
Yeah.
Hey, I only did that with my son.
That's funny. Yeah. One of the I was talking about it, that I was blessed to be part of a presentation this week where an assistant general manager for a major league team was talking about the coaching style for Davey Johnson, and he was asking Davey Johnson, who coached the Mets in the mid '80s, whatever, like, how do you manage all these 25 different personalities and
attitudes?
Dudes? And you remember, I mean, this was, you know, Keith Hernandez and Lenny Dykstra, Dwight Gooden, Gary Carter. I'm going on and on and on.
Yeah.
25 just dudes, right? Different types of personalities, backgrounds, and everything. Davey Johnson was like, I manage maybe 4 of them. The 4 big dogs. I keep them in line. Everybody else
follows them. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very intriguing. He's like, no, I just manage the 4 big ones. Yeah, and I wonder who they were. You know what I mean? And I was kind of thinking about that this week. But that's something, and you know, if you're listening out there with your organization, think about that. Who are the guys that you manage that everybody else follows in line? You're listening to the Marketing Corner, and we'll be back. And we are back to the Marketing Corner. Co-host David Bradley. Woo! We need like an audience in here, so when I do this, is like a round of applause.
Stand outside the window.
And special guest Bob Logan. Before I forget, Bob, what's a good way to reach out to you? Someone who's listening right now.
Let me just give you everything. Very easy. My website is www.boblogan.net, not com.net. I may actually give you my phone number. I used to put my phone number on the board when I was teaching at South Point, and parents go, "Are you kidding me? You give the phone number to your kids?" Guess what? They were very respectful. I never got a crank call. So 520-349-9171. And I have a book that I published about a year or so ago, and there's a landing page for that. That is letyourpathfindyou.com.
If you're watching this on the podcast, Bob, lift up that book. Is that it right there?
Yeah.
And put it in front of this camera right here.
Right here.
No, up here. Yeah. Right here. So you can see that if you're watching this on a podcast on YouTube or Spotify, you could watch this, the Marketing Corner hosted by Shawn Campbell. So subscribe while you're there too. Come on. So one thing that, you know, there's so many things, you know, as I went through your LinkedIn profile, your website, watched some videos. One of the things that I'm most intrigued about in this conversation during this episode is the topic of motivation.
Okay.
Speak to us about this.
Oh.
Yeah. Just what's something that the first step in, as a leader of an organization, a coach of a team, how do you motivate people?
You know, one of the things that I really tried to do is work with my, not only players and teams, but organizations and workers is try to be in their space. Try to understand what they're going through. So I'll do an exercise at a talk that I'm giving, and I'll say, look, I'm not going to call anybody out and find out specifics, but raise your hand if you've gone through a bankruptcy, or if you've dealt with somebody with cancer, or you've gone through a bad divorce, or you've had to take the keys away from your parents that can't drive their car, all those things. And it takes a couple minutes, and then I say, okay, now look around the room, raise your hand if you raised your hand at any of those things. And guess what? Every single person in the room has issues. Everybody has problems. And so the point as a leader is to have empathy for your employees. So if you've got a problem employee, there may be something going on behind the scenes that you really don't know about. And instead of only look at them as an 8 to 5 person, you need to get into their space and find out what's going on in their life. Because if you show empathy towards them, guess what? They're going to be motivated so much more to work for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, sorry to interrupt, though. Even if they share a story, it might have been something that you went through personally as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So working with your people and trying to be on their side, motivation gets, people like to throw that around like being a Vince Lombardi kind of guy. That's not what motivation is all about. You need to help them find the passion to agree to work hard for your group.
Or even find out what really motivates them. Right? It might be money for one person, it might be something else for someone else.
Point. Right. Very, very good point. I took it was like a personality test. I forget the name of it, about a year and a half ago. And one thing that I'll be the first in line to admit this, my empathy sucks. I don't have empathy for.
I've been told that several times.
So when I see a dude walk in 5-10 minutes late every day, and I'm just like, back of my mind is like, why are you late all the time? You get the opportunity to work here, just the best place ever. Blah blah blah. You get all these benefits, good pay, blah blah. Why are you always late? But to your point, Bob, I don't know what's going on.
You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So working with your people, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah. If you have any questions for any of us, 520-790-2040. David, in your career, what are your thoughts about, what has made some of the best people in your industry? What motivates them? What motivates you?
Well, first of all, with the people, I mean, again, going back to what I was saying, everyone has different aspects of their getting motivated. Right. It's like one might be money. One might be recognition. Right. One might be, hey, just hear me out. Like you were talking about, wanting to be heard. Right. What motivates me is I'm in a career that is very rewarding, helping people. That's what really motivates me. I always say to every client I sit down with, or all my current clients, I treat everyone like family. And
you do.
I remember speaking. Thank you. I remember speaking, doing a seminar, and I say, "Listen, I treat everyone like my own mother." And then one guy raises his hand. He's like, "Well, it depends on your relationship with your mother." And I'm like, "Great point, sir.
Great point."
And I'm like, my mom and I are best friends. I treat
but you've always been like that. You and I have known each other for 25, 26 years. Yeah. From the very beginnings of your career in
farmers insurance, back in 96.
If you got a call from a policyholder, everything stopped and you would listen to them. I remember you just putting your head down and just listening and taking notes. You've always been that way. You've always been that way.
One of the things that I learned at working at the University of Arizona, being around so many researchers and so much unbelievable knowledge, employees, blank broad brush comment here, are not motivated by money. They're not motivated by titles. Sure, all that's good, then we all want it, but what they're really motivated by is appreciation. Is being able to be, and I have a thing called the stop the train moment, where here's an example of you're sitting on the couch with your son or daughter watching TV, maybe a teenager, and just mute the TV. What are you doing, Dad? What are you doing? I just want to take a minute.
I'm going to do this or not.
I wanted to take a minute and tell you how proud I am of you. What you've been doing on your project in history or whatever it is. And I see how you work with other kids. I just want you to know that I'm so happy to have you as my son or daughter. You know, and you can do that same thing with your employee. You know, they're working on a project. You pull them in, say, hey, nothing going on. I just want to let you know you are kicking A on that project.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine how much energy you buy from that employee by giving them a tap on the back.
Yeah.
Goes a long way.
Yeah. I want to be a little vulnerable here to you guys in the audience. I don't know, can't believe I'm going to say this, but one of the things that motivates me is, and I hate failure. I hate losing. But once I get off that mat, watch out. Watch out. There's nothing more that motivates me than trying to prove somebody wrong.
Yep, absolutely.
And I know this isn't healthy. I've been told by many people, you're not healthy, Shawn. But that chip on the shoulder, oh, dude. I mean, don't get me mad.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, it's tell me no, and
I hate losing.
Yeah,
you have no idea. I mean, you know, I appreciate everything. I appreciate the small wins and everything, but failure motivates me.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And I know I'm probably an outlier. I know I'm an outlier in that aspect. But man, once I dust myself off, watch out, man.
But on that topic of failure, let me just say this. Yeah. Too many people, are afraid to take risk.
Yeah.
They're afraid to try to get out of their comfort zone because you need to get out of your comfort zone to find success.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't understand that failure is part of the process to get to success.
Right.
Absolutely.
And too many people think failure is a noun, i.e., I am a failure.
Yeah.
No, that's not a noun.
Right.
It's a verb. You happen to fail in a specific situation, and it's over.
Yeah.
Just move on.
Yeah, learn from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick before we get into the break, I was part of a panel discussion a few weeks ago at the College of Eller.
Oh, good.
It was a career day, right? And so a young lady raises her hand, and that's what she was saying. It's like, what if I fail my first job, right? And I was sitting next to two corporate people, and then there's me, right? So I interjected right away and said, and I was like, good.
Yeah, good. That's right.
It's like, don't be afraid of failure. In fact, I promise you, you're going to fail your first job.
Oh, yeah.
And you will be all right. I promise you that. You know, you're here and you're brave enough to ask that question in front of all of us. What if I fail? You show some vulnerability. And I could just tell in your eyes, you will succeed. Mm-hmm. And that just glowed. She just glowed and she was gushing. Yeah. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, I had that saying too for myself. It's like, do it afraid.
Yeah, so we appreciate you listening. So we'll be back in the last segment here in the Marketing Corner. The last segment of the Marketing Corner already. I told you 2 hours would have been easy for the three of us today. So before we get into it, I do always want to thank John, our engineer, for making this possible and real easy for us. David Bradley, sponsor Medicare A to Z. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Pleasure. Proud to be here.
Yeah, other sponsors of the show, Candace Eaton of Eaton Photography, Jamar Jordan, tax specialist, Roger LaFaye Processing, Danny McPadden, Last Bridge Media, Mark Weiss, Sales Performance Strategies. Next week, we got Tyler Lopez from Lopez and Lopez Realtors, co-hosted by Mark Weiss. And the last question to kind of lead us into this segment, Bob, you know, you do a number of, motivational appearances to companies, and, as a coach. And what do you do for yourself when you're not just feeling 100% optimal, when your mindset is a little bit off?
You know, I'm a perennial student. And even when I was coaching, this is back in the days before there were YouTube and all the resources. I bought football books. I learned a lot of football out of reading books. So even today, I'm just a student of what I do. Mm-hmm. And I love researching and finding stories that I might be able to fit into my talks. As an example, Simone Biles just had this amazing gold medal vault in Paris, right? And I came across this video of the gold, and I'm going to tell your listeners to go find this video, the 1956 Melbourne Olympics, the gold medal vault. Go take a look at what that looks like. The difference from that
Olympics.
To today is amazing. Mm-hmm. And you look at that and you say, I don't think I can ever improve. I don't think I can ever get better. Well, guess what? From there to there, you can get better.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like we have someone who's calling in with a question. John, are we ready to take this phone call? We got Carla on the line. Carla, first, thank you for calling in. What's your question?
Hi. Well, I really address myself as Crazy Grandma Carla. Because I'm David Bradley's mom.
Are you?
Hi, Mom.
He is blushing. He's so proud right now.
Hi, Mom.
Hello, Carla.
Hi. No, your show is great, and I've been listening. And I use that Crazy Grandma Carla to drive my youngest grandson up the wall. Okay. He rolls his eyes. And I've used it more than one. Okay. So anyway, I just want to tell you, you guys are terrific, and I love listening to you. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Mom. I'll pay you when I see you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mom. Carla. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm beat red.
That was a special moment.
That's right.
Yeah, I just told her. I said, make sure you tune in and listen.
Yeah. I love the feedback you give me from your mom every show. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, she loves it.
That's cool. So, getting back, what do you do when you have somebody like up here? I mean, if a fellow small business owner, somebody that's just, that's hit a wall. I mean, you kind of explain what you do, Bob, but, what are some of the things that you do to kind of pick them up and brush them off a little bit?
Well, again, going back to when I do speaking, I have some talks that are kind of boilerplate, on happiness or comfort zones or fear of failure. Again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, get into their space and get into their head and find out, where are your problems right now? What are the issues that you're dealing with right now, and how might I be able to address those issues and problems?
That's powerful.
Either through a retreat or a talk or whatever. Getting people to talk. And one of the things I learned when I was raising money for my career is the sign of an amazing meeting with a donor, is not saying a word. Because guess what? Most people enjoy talking. They want to talk about themselves.
Yep.
They want to hear their voice.
Yep.
And I had so many meetings with donors, and with young development people, they meet with the donor and they just whip out the proposal and put it in front of them, and it's an awkward moment.
Yeah.
You want the donor to talk about what their wishes, desires, and passions are, and let the voice flow out of them. And then I try to find a project or a scholarship or a building that might be a match for them. But guess what? Donors control the process, not the development people, not the sales people. They should be listening to the constituents and their clients a lot more.
Yeah, in any type of sales situation, I always preach, you do about 20% of the talking.
Exactly right.
If you're doing more, if you do 21%,
too much.
You're not going to close the sale. You're not going to close the sale at all. So that's just...
I had a faculty member that... I had a donor that provided some support for speech, language, and hearing sciences. And this faculty member did some research in neuroscience, and I thought they'd be a really good fit. I said, hey, let's get together with this donor. I think he might be able to fund your program. So the faculty member says, you know what, Bob, you don't need to go. So I set them up at Blue Willow, and they went to lunch at Blue Willow. And I was all excited. So, 3 o'clock, I called the faculty member, how'd it go? Oh, my God, unbelievable. He loves everything I'm doing. I think we're going to get $100,000 out of this guy. I said, wow. Okay, good job. So I called the donor, and I said, how did it go? This is the worst meeting in my life.
Wow.
I said, what are you talking about? He says,
he wouldn't shut up.
I didn't say a word. The faculty member talked for an entire hour. And so that was a really important thing to listening is the important thing on your head. Your ears are really important.
Yeah, John, do we got the other caller on the line right here? We got Billy Bear Netherton. One of my favorite dudes.
Good memory.
What's going on, my man?
Talking about big failures in our community. I'm one of them, and I got to tell you guys, first of all,
you're an inspiration.
I'm enjoying the show very much, but what I wanted to say, Shawn and Bob, is that I was so afraid to fail for so many years in my life growing up, and that my motivating factor was to wake up and say, I can't fail. But man, failing is the best thing that ever happened to me, and multiple times, because I just realized as a business owner, you've got to be resilient, and you got to show up, and you got to stay positive, and I just wanted to put that out there. There's so much to talk about, but I'm just really enjoying the conversation you guys are having right now. But as you both know, I love to hear my voice as well on the radio.
One thing, Bill, you and I have known each other for nearly a decade now, and I don't think you've ever really, we had so many tremendous conversations, right? Bill Netherton is one of the reasons why I wanted to get into podcasting and radio show, because he was one of the guys that just having a beer and just the lessons I learned from the person who's on the phone right now with us, Bill Netherton from Professional Bartenders Unlimited. He's a tremendous inspiration. But Bill, one thing you've never said to me is that you've ever been afraid of failure.
You've
never said
literally,
that to me.
Yeah, seriously, that's one of the things I was afraid to fail for so many years, and it actually hinders a person. It'll freeze you up, and it'll keep you from actually performing at all your best possible levels, because you're so frozen with the concept of fear. When if we try to embrace it, which sounds like the opposite of what you should be doing, it will paralyze you, and you won't ever grow.
Absolutely, Billy. I mean, I think it goes back to even his childhood, right? I mean, we were told and taught, don't fail, whatever it was, whether it's, disappointing your parents or whatever the case may be. It was instilled at such a young age.
There's a great thing I put in my talks. Jeff Bezos, the former CEO of Amazon, in his, I think it was 2022 in his annual report, he says we need to increase the number of failures in our organizations. And I'm thinking, wow, how can somebody say that at that level? The richest man in the world, the biggest company in the world, his next line is because greater failures lead to greater success.
So learning opportunity.
It's so true, gentlemen. People say, hey, Billy, I want to give you some advice. I'm like, what's that? He goes, go out, and I want you to go out and fail today in something. Just go out and fail, and you're going to be better for it. I said, wait a minute, isn't that all backward? He said, no. It's actually not backward. It's actually forward thinking.
Yeah. Bill, do me a favor. Professional Bartenders Unlimited. Anybody needs you? What's a good way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, it's really simple. And thanks for asking, Shawn. Just go to probartenders.net. And remember, Tucson, you can be a guest at your own party.
I love it. Bill, thank you so much.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. I love the show, Shawn, and I really enjoy today's conversation, gentlemen.
Yeah, we appreciate you so much, Bill.
Thanks,
thank you.
Bill.
That just gave me the chills, too.
I know. He's one of the best dudes I've ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Isn't he?
He is.
He gives you the big hug.
I can't
he's
wait
genuine.
to meet him.
He's so authentic, but I've never heard him say that to me. I've known him for 10 years, and we get down into some serious conversations about everything, right? But he's never admitted that. I feel like I have a win.
You just did on your show, man.
On my show. I feel I'm a little over arrogant today because of that.
So you're not failing today. You're not failing today.
Today was a win.
Absolutely.
Bob, I want you to plug your book. You have a different book out here, and I want you to give some last words here in the 2 minutes. So we have
geez, you're going to give me a full 2 minutes? I can't talk more than 2 minutes.
No,
it's impossible. It's impossible. Well, my book is called Let Your Path Find You, and people always ask me, hey, what's your book about? And it's kind of interesting because I started this project 6 years ago. It took me 6 years to write this book.
Wow.
And I was at a conference in Puerto Rico, and some guy gets on the stage. It was a speaking conference for universities. And the guy gets up on stage, kind of a snake oil salesman, and he starts saying, hey, if you're going to be a speaker, you got to have a book. And at that time, I didn't even have a website. I hadn't given a talk yet. I had not started. And the last thing I wanted to do was a book. Well, it took a long time to get it done, but many of these speakers, and I'm not trying to belittle speakers in general, but if you've probably been there, you go to a conference, somebody talks, and they're selling their book from the stage, and they're usually kind of thrown together.
Or their platform or whatever it is.
This book has some content. It's a memoir. It talks about the Camino de Santiago, which I've walked 3 times.
Yeah.
And the chapter titles are Fear, Failure, Challenge, Change, Adversity, Leadership.
It's an awesome book.
And you can jump around anywhere you want. And the final thing I'll say is there are QR codes in there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell a story. You can take your phone and you can watch a video about that story. So it's an interactive book.
It was meant to be that Bob was on here because one of the things, we're talking about the chip on my shoulder, one of the things that I said, this is it, I'm never going to work for anybody again, was somebody that told me that it wasn't in my path.
There you go.
And what's the name of your book?
Yeah, Let Your Path Find You.
Absolutely. It's a great book because it's a combination of just so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
That you just put together. I mean, you're coaching the walk of the Camino. I mean, I'm halfway through it. I'm going to admit.
I know there are not enough photos in there for you. But
So, everybody, thank you for listening to the Marketing Corner. Please tune in next week, same time, same place.